Rain lashed Arlington National Cemetery like a barrage of bullets, the Virginia sky a churning maelstrom of gray, casting an eerie glow over the endless rows of white headstones. Each marker stood as a silent sentinel, but none bore the weight of the tomb of the unknown soldier, a monument to heroes whose names were lost to war's unrelenting jaws. At its heart, Sergeant Caleb Hayes, a 28-year-old warrior forged in the crucible of combat, marched his 21 steps with lethal precision. His polished black boots struck the rain-slicked stone like a war drum, each step a vow etched in blood and steel. His navy blue uniform, pristine despite the deluge, gleamed with gold buttons that caught the storm's faint light. The M14 rifle on his shoulder wasn't just a ceremonial prop. It was an extension of a man who'd stared down death in far-off war zones. This wasn't a post. This was a battlefield. Before we plunge into this pulse-pounding tale, drop a comment and tell us, where are you watching from? And if you believe honor, courage, and sacrifice still burn bright in a world gone cold, hit that subscribe button and join us in keeping their fire alive. Let's dive in. The crowd huddled under umbrellas, a mix of wide-eyed tourists, families, and grizzled veterans, their faces torn between awe and curiosity. School kids whispered, their teachers hissing for silence as they marveled at Caleb's metronomic march. A father murmured to his daughter, explaining the sacred rhythm of the 21 steps. An elderly couple, their jackets heavy with veteran pins, stood in reverent silence, their eyes locked on the tomb. Among them, Colonel Emily Warren, 52, her gray hair tucked under her cap, her dress uniform weighed down by medals from Iraq's brutal sands. She'd served with Caleb's father, a bond forged in fire, and today she stood to honor ghosts of battles past. Her hands clasped tight, pride flickering in her steely gaze. But the solemn air shattered like glass under a sledgehammer. Marcus Thorne, a hulking storm of a man, shoved through the crowd with the swagger of a predator. At 35, he was a walking weapon, broad-shouldered, his leather jacket scarred at the elbows, steel-toed boots grinding the wet stone with menace. Faded tattoos snaked across his arms, inked in prison yards and back-alley brawls. A scar slashed across his knuckles, a badge of fights won and lost. His cold, calculating eyes locked on Caleb, seeing not a soldier, but prey. A chance to tear down something sacred and spit in the face of honor. "Hey, toy soldier!" Marcus's voice sliced through the rain like a serrated blade, mocking the hallowed silence. The crowd froze, umbrellas tilting, phones lowering. "Look at you, all dolled up in your fancy costume." He stood at the rope line, hands shoved in his pockets, his sneer a challenge to the tomb's sanctity. Caleb didn't flinch. His eyes burned forward, his 21 steps unwavering, a heartbeat of duty that no taunt could break. Marcus stepped closer, boots scuffing the stone. "What's with that hat? Looks like it's holding you down, soldier boy." The crowd shifted, unease rippling through them. A mother pulled her son close, her umbrella trembling. Colonel Warren's jaw tightened, her hand brushing the medals on her chest, a reflex from years of facing threats. Marcus's voice grew louder, feeding off the crowd's tension. "This is all a show, right? A tourist trap for suckers." He gestured at Caleb's uniform, its navy blue fabric gleaming defiantly in the rain. "Bet that rifle's plastic, just like your guts." The veterans in the crowd exchanged hard glances, their faces carved from stone. A grandfather muttered to his wide-eyed grandson, "Stay back, Tommy. This guy's trouble." Caleb's grip on the M14 tightened, his stance shifting subtly. A predator reading a threat. 8 years in the army, 2 tours in hellish outposts had honed his instincts. He wasn't just a guard. He was a warrior. Marcus circled like a shark, his voice dripping venom. "Can't talk, huh? Just a puppet on a string, dancing for the cameras." He mocked a salute, his scarred hands sloppy and disrespectful. The air thickened, the rain a relentless drumbeat against the rising storm. Marcus crossed the rope line, a violation of sacred ground. "Think you're tough, standing there like a statue?" He leaned in, inches from Caleb, his fingers grazing the tomb guard badge pinned to his chest. Nice tin collection. What did you do to earn these? Stand still for a paycheck. Each metal clinked under his touch. Afghanistan's mountains, Syria's deserts, moments of courage under fire Marcus could never comprehend. The crowd gasped, some stepping back. Colonel Warren's hand twitched, as if reaching for a weapon long since holstered. Easy, Emily, her companion whispered, gripping her arm. Marcus's hand slid to Caleb's collar, tugging the fabric with a sneer. Feels cheap to me. All for show, just like you. His fingers smeared the shine of Caleb's gold buttons, his voice dropping to a growl. Bet I could take that rifle, and you just stand there, looking like a fool. The M14's weight seemed to grow, its polished steel a silent promise. Marcus's fingers trailed along the barrel, his breath hot against the rain. Time to show the world what a joke this is. In a heartbeat, the world exploded into chaos. Marcus's hand clamped on the rifle, his muscles coiling for a yank. But Caleb moved like a bolt of lightning, years of training igniting in a single, fluid motion. The M14 swung upward, its butt slamming into Marcus's chest with a crack that echoed like a cannon shot. Marcus staggered, gasping, his eyes wide with shock as he clutched his chest. The sneer vanished, replaced by the raw fear of a man who'd misjudged his foe. His boots slipped on the wet stone, his body teetering. "You can't," he wheezed, but the words died in his throat. Caleb resumed his stance, the rifle back in position, his movements so precise it was as if the strike had never happened. But the air had shifted. A lethal edge radiated from him, a warning carved in steel. Marcus straightened, his face red with rage and humiliation. "Think you're tough, huh?" He coughed, his voice raspy. "That was a lucky shot. Let's see you handle a real fight." He clenched his fists, tattoos stretching tight across his knuckles. The crowd backed away, a mother shielding her kids behind a pillar. Colonel Warren's eyes narrowed, her metals glinting like a warrior's armor. Marcus lunged, his boots scraping the stone, his body a blur of raw aggression. But before he could take a second step, a gunshot tore through the storm. The deafening crack bounced off the tomb's marble, silencing the crowd. Caleb had raised the M14 in one seamless motion, firing a warning shot into the sky. The acrid scent of gunpowder cut through the rain, sharp and undeniable. Marcus froze mid-step, his body locked in place, his face drained of color. The rifle was real, the soldier was real, and he'd just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "Don't move." Caleb's voice was a blade, each word forged in combat zones where hesitation meant death. The M14 stayed trained on Marcus, its barrel steady as the tomb itself. Marcus's hands rose, trembling, not from the cold but from the primal terror of staring down a warrior's resolve. "I didn't," he stammered, his tough guy facade crumbling like ash. He looked small now, dwarfed by the tomb's grandeur, undone by his own arrogance. "On your knees," Caleb commanded, his voice carrying the weight of authority that needed no explanation. Marcus dropped, his knees cracking against the stone, his hands spread in desperate submission. Sweat and rain stung his eyes, his bravado reduced to a flicker. The veterans nodded, their faces grim with satisfaction. This wasn't theater. This was discipline, the kind forged in blood and fire. Sirens wailed, slicing through the storm as armed police stormed the plaza, their boots splashing through puddles. They took in the scene. Marcus kneeling, Caleb standing like a sentinel, the crowd frozen in awe. "Stay down!" An officer barked, though Marcus hadn't moved. His shoulders slumped as cuffs snapped around his wrists, the swagger gone, his eyes fixed on the ground. Caleb lowered his rifle with surgical precision, resuming his march 21 steps, turn, pause, 21 steps back. The rain washed over him, but it couldn't touch his resolve. An officer approached Caleb, offering a nod of respect. "We'll need a statement, Sergeant. Attempting to disarm a tomb guard is a federal offense." Colonel Warren stepped forward, her metals gleaming in the fading light. "I saw it all," she said, her voice steady as steel. "Deliberate provocation, physical assault, attempt to seize a weapon. This soldier showed restraint most wouldn't. The older veteran nearby grunted. Back in my day, he'd have gotten more than a warning shot. His grandson looked up, eyes shining with awe. A young boy tugged at his father's sleeve. Dad, is the guard a superhero? The father knelt, his voice firm but warm. No, son. He's a soldier. That's what makes him extraordinary. As Marcus was led to a police van, his head hung low, the weight of his humiliation heavier than the cuffs. The crowd watched, their phones now capturing not drama, but reverence. I thought they were just for show, a tourist whispered. Another nodded. That's real strength. Colonel Warren approached Caleb's post as the rain slowed to a drizzle. She didn't speak, just snapped a crisp salute. A warrior's tribute to another. Caleb's eyes stayed forward, but the moment carried a shared understanding. Duty, honor, respect. The narrator's voice returns, low and resonant, like a war drum's echo. In a world that mocks tradition and dismisses ceremony as theater, today's clash at Arlington reveals a deeper truth. The tomb guards aren't symbols. They're warriors, carrying the weight of every soldier who never came home. Their silence isn't weakness. It's power. Their stillness isn't passivity. It's readiness. Caleb resumed his march 21 steps, turn, pause, 21 steps back. The crowd watched differently now, their curiosity replaced by awe. The tomb stood as it always had, a monument to sacrifice, guarded by men like Caleb, whose resolve outlasts any storm. What would you do when faced with such disrespect? How far can tradition bend before steel must break through? The real question isn't why these guards stand so still. It's what it takes to make them move, and whether anyone would dare to find out. If the story gripped you, share it with someone who needs to feel its fire. Visit Arlington, witness the tomb, and honor the men and women who guard not just a monument, but the soul of a nation. Drop a super chat to fuel more stories that hit like a thunderclap, and click the video on your screen for another tale of courage, sacrifice, and a choice that'll leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about duty and justice. Don't wait. Click now.